friends, welcome back to the kitchen. I am so excited for today's episode, as always, but especially today because I'm going to be sharing two recipes with you that are super easy and have been game changers for me in the world of hosting and entertaining. But before we get into today's recipes, I want to share a quick little story with you. I learned something this morning. As you would probably expect, I love music and generally had a soundtrack playing all the time. So I needed to run to the market this morning to pick up a few things, actually for today's episode. And Spotify decided to share a new playlist with me. And the name of this playlist is called Yacht Rock. Have you ever heard of Yacht Rock? I feel like maybe I was just late to the game on musical genres and everybody knows this, but I was super curious. I looked it up, and yacht rock is like a subgenre of soft rock from like the late 70s to the early 80s. Anyway, Spotify pegged me. I loved the playlist, and I loved even more the fact that I got to learn something new. So if you haven't heard of yacht rock, check it out. So let's get started with today's episode. I'm going to be sharing two family recipes with you. And again, they're very simple. And like I said, for me, they have been game changers. So a big shout out to my cousin Fifi, who lives in Las Cruces. You guys have heard me talk about being from Las Cruces, which is about 45 miles from El Paso. This is actually one of her recipes, one of her family recipes that she shared with me. It's very simple. The name of what we're going to be making first is called Heavenly Cream. It's got two ingredients. It's basically 1 part whipped cream and 1 part marshmallow cream. And I know it sounds very simple, but there's something about the combination of those two elements that create an amazing flavor, an amazing texture, and something that your guests will love. So as I mentioned, Heavenly Cream has two ingredients, marshmallow cream and whipped cream. I know it's very simple. I have seen this at parties and gatherings, and it's so fun to watch because you'll see people go over, and typically I will serve this with strawberries, any kind of a berry fruit, angel food cake, cake bits, anything that's delicious kind of dipped in cream. But you watch people and they'll go over and they'll try some, and then maybe they walk away, but then within minutes they're back for more. And then the next thing you know, there's like a crowd around the Heavenly Cream. So I can't say enough how much I know you're going to enjoy having this, and how much you're going to enjoy serving it just like I have. So let's get started. Equal parts marshmallow cream and whipped cream. So we're going to start by putting this container of marshmallow cream into our mixer. Okay, so I put the entire container of the marshmallow cream in, which was 13 ounces. And so now we're going to add an equal amount of the Cool Whip. All right, so you can kind of gauge how much of this you'll want to make for whatever the occasion is. Just remember, you want equal parts of the marshmallow cream and the Cool Whip. Let's go ahead and whip this up. All right, we've got that nice and whipped. So you can see we've got this great consistency. Very, very creamy. And as I mentioned, what we're going to do is we're going to serve this with all kinds of berry fruit, cakes, anything that would be good with kind of a creamy dip on it. Okay, so in addition of just serving the cream with fresh berries and cake bites, I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of ideas on putting together some desserts that also use the Heavenly Cream. So let's do that. Okay, so the first dessert we're going to make is very simple. It's basically a mixture of berries. So we have strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. So this is a mixed fruit mixture. And then we're going to top it with the Heavenly Cream. And let me explain. I put the heavenly cream into a piping bag because it makes it a lot easier to apply it to where we're using it in the desserts. Now, with the consistency of the heavenly cream, it doesn't really hold the shape of the piping, but it just makes it much easier and less messy to put it into the dishes using a piping bag. And then I also have just regular whipping cream that I'm going to use as a topping as well. So we're going to start by putting our mixed fruit into, I'm actually using some glasses from the bar. So we're going to use these. All right, once we have the fruit in our glasses, then we're going to do a layer of our heavenly cream on top of the fruit. Now that we have the heavenly cream on top of the fruit, we're going to do a little bit of kind of decorative with the whipped cream in the center, just to give it a little bit of volume. So we'll add that here. And now we're going to sprinkle with coconut. This is sweetened coconut. All right, so we've got our mixed fruit, we've got our heavenly cream on top of that, and we've got a little bit of our whipped cream on top of that. And again, the reason we do the whipped cream is because typically the heavenly cream will settle. It comes out of the piping bag kind of looking piped, but then once it kind of warms up a bit, it tends to settle, but the whipped cream will hold its shape. So now we're going to garnish with each of the fruits that's in the fruit mix. All right, so there we go. There's our first dessert using heavenly cream. Let's do another. Okay, for our next dessert, we're basically going to be doing a fresh fruit and cream parfait. So for this, I'm going to be using blueberries, raspberries, and then we're going to be using graham cracker crumbs, and then also chopped pecans, and also, of course, our heavenly cream and our whipped cream. So let's put this together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a spoon of graham cracker crumbs in the bottom of each of our parfait glasses. So we'll start with our first fruit, which is the blueberry. Okay, so then our next layer is going to be heavenly cream. And from there, we do another layer of graham cracker crumbs. Now we go to our raspberries. Okay, so now we'll do our second layer of heavenly cream. Top it off with some whipping cream right on top. Then we're going to sprinkle it with our chopped pecans. So our final touch will be a garnish of our blueberries and raspberries. And there we go, our second dessert. Okay, so for our next two desserts, I'm going to share the second recipe with you today, and that is my family recipe for homemade strawberry pie. And I promise you, it's simple, it is so delicious, you will never be tempted to buy a pre-made berry pie filling in the store ever again. And the nice thing about what I'm going to show you today is I'm doing it today with strawberries, but you can do it with almost any type of berry. You can do it with blueberries, you can do it with raspberries, you can do it with blackberries, you can do it with mixed berries. You can be very creative, but I'm going to do it with strawberries today because that's kind of the theme of what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to muddle 1 cup of strawberries. So what we'll do is we'll start by slicing our strawberries. I'm going to give you a couple of tips about the best way to muddle your berries. First of all, you want to make sure that you cut them into really small pieces before you put them into the muddle. Okay, so let's start with that. All right, so I generally fill the mortar and pestle about halfway full. You don't want to get it too full because then it gets messy. And also, when you start, it can be a little tricky when you first get into the process of, the muddling process. But what happens is, once you start getting the strawberries mashed and we start getting some liquid into the mixture, it gets a lot easier. What happens is the solid pieces kind of get suspended in the liquid, so it makes it a lot easier in the muddling process. Okay, so we've got our cup of muddled strawberries. So this is like a strawberry juice. That's our primary ingredient. Then we're also going to be using 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. We're going to be using 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. We're going to be using a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We've got 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And then ultimately, we're going to need 4 cups of strawberries. Now, a lot of times when people make strawberry pies, they leave the strawberries whole, which is perfectly fine. But for the desserts that we're making today, I intentionally cut the strawberries up a lot smaller than whole strawberries because they're going to be going into kind of parfait type dishes, and we're going to be making some little mini pies. So we need the consistency of the strawberry mix to be much smaller than the whole strawberries. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our 1 cup of muddled strawberry, and we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of water, and we're going to bring it to a boil and simmer it for 3 minutes. Okay, so we have our 1 cup of muddled strawberry puree and our 3/4 cup of water. It is we're just about to the point where we're boiling. And as soon as it starts to boil, just about there, as soon as it starts to boil, we're going to cut that heat down to a medium, and we're going to simmer it here for 3 minutes. All right, so now we've simmered our mixture for 3 minutes. We're going to strain it to get all of the pulp out of what's basically going to be our strawberry juice. So we'll take this over to our cup and our strainer. And what this does is this just eliminates any of the pulp that might still be in the mixture. Okay, once we've strained our puree, we now have this strawberry juice, which is going to be the base of the filling that we're making. And you always want to start with 1 cup. And sometimes it depends on the way the puree cooks with the water. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less. If it's more than a cup, you want to pour off a bit, so you just have a cup. And if it's less than a cup, you want to add a little bit of water. So you always want to start with 1 cup of your strawberry juice. So we're going to put that into our saucepan. We can go ahead and add our lemon juice. It's fine. So now that we're starting to simmer, we can go ahead and add our sugar. Stir that in really good so that it dissolves. And during this process, you want to stir constantly. You never want to stop stirring while we're doing this. We go ahead and add our salt, stir that in. Just like that. And then finally, we'll start to stir in our cornstarch. Obviously, the cornstarch is the thickening agent, so that's what's going to help thicken our gel. So get that in, stir that in real good. So what we're looking for as this continues to simmer is we're looking for it changing between being a cloudy feel, kind of a cloudy texture, to being a clear texture. And generally that can take anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. So we want to keep that at high, but as I said, stirring constantly. Yeah, now you can see we're starting to get nice and thick. All right, that took us about 3 minutes to get to that nice, thick, clear consistency. So you want to remove it from the heat as soon as we get there. We still have a few little pieces of cornstarch that you can see in the mixture, but once we add the strawberries and stir it in, we'll be in good shape. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and stir in our 4 cups of strawberries. Like I said, for this particular application, I have cut them into small pieces. If you're actually making a pie, probably leave them whole or maybe cut them in half. And then we get those in, and then we just stir those into our mixture. There we go. So there we have it, and I promise if you could taste this, you would agree with me. This is one of the most delicious berry pies you'll ever taste. So let's make our last 2 desserts. All right, so for our next dessert, we're going to be using our strawberry pie filling. And once again, we visited the bar for glassware. So these are just traditional margarita glasses. And we're going to create kind of this unique parfait. So we're going to be using our strawberry pie mixture. We're going to be using sliced bananas. We're going to be using Kit Kat, pieces of Kit Kat bar, which I love. And then this is actually crumbled Kit Kat. So I put this into the nut chopper and chopped it up. So we're going to have a little bit of a Kit Kat crumble to go on top. And then obviously we're going to continue to use our heavenly cream and a little bit of whipped cream to go on top. So let's put this together. So we're going to start with our strawberry pie filling to go in the very bottom of the glass. So we're going to fill that little reservoir right in the bottom. So we'll do that in each of our glasses. All right, you know what I forgot? I forgot my graham cracker crumbs. Let me grab those. Our next layer is going to be the graham cracker crumbs right on top of our strawberry there. So once that's in place, we're going to take our spoon and flatten that out just a bit. So we started with our strawberry pie filling. We added our little layer of graham cracker crumbs. Now we're going to take our banana slices and we're gonna go right around the edge. Okay, now that we have our banana slices around the edge of the glass, we're gonna go ahead and fill up to the top of the banana slices with more of our strawberry pie filling. So that'll be next. Just drop that in. Like I said, we'll take that right up to the top of the bananas. Once we have that layer of our strawberry pie filling, we're going to take our heavenly cream and do a layer of that right on top. Now, once we have our layer of heavenly cream on, we're going to take a spoon and we're just going to kind of smooth that out so we have a nice smooth surface. Now we've got our layer of heavenly cream. The next thing we're going to add is this is our Kit Kat crumble. So we're just going to sprinkle that on top of each one. All over the top. Okay, so we've got our Kit Kat crumble on top of each. So we're going to do one last dollop of whipping cream right in the middle. And the final touch is the Kit Kat. And there we have our next dessert. Okay, so our final dessert for today, very simple. We're going to do some mini strawberry pies, and we're starting with a ready-made graham cracker crust. So that's the beginning. We're going to add our strawberry pie filling into each of those. Now we're going to top each of these off with our heavenly cream. And then, last but not least, we're just going to do a little shave of dark chocolate onto each one. And there we have our last dessert. Thanks again for spending this time with us today. I hope I've given you some inspiration for your own hosting. It was such a pleasure to share two of my favorite recipes with you. The very simple heavenly cream with just 2 ingredients, and then also my family's strawberry pie recipe. So whether you're doing something very simple or want to elevate some of your desserts, hopefully this will give you some ideas and inspiration. So just remember, with the heavenly cream, very simple. You can simply serve it with fruit, strawberries, cake bites, angel food cake is great. And then with the strawberry pie mixture and the heavenly cream together, really, there's no limits to your imagination and what you can put together. Our manifesto moment for today is: we believe tables should be dressed to the nines always. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week.